Yet again, more validation that I was more on point with what actually happened versus the narrative that you're hearing from mainstream media, independent media. You guys remember that I pointed out the fact that everyone's assuming that Trump was the actual target, that this was all about Trump. But I said, we don't really know what his intentions were, right? The guy's dead, no manifesto, right? Maybe he killed the person he intended to kill. Another perspective is, as we can see here, he was looking at images of Trump and Biden, looking for images of public figures. So I don't think it really mattered who he killed, right? This is why it's important in analysis not to make too many assumptions, not to be too emotional, jump to conclusions, and then confirmation bias takes hold. You kept looking at this as a Trump assassination attempt, that it's all about Trump, then you start looking at all the data from that perspective. But if you respect the reality that we don't really know what his intentions were, that can blind you.
Figures and celebrities, and it's like, oh wow, Donald Trump is coming to Butler, Pennsylvania. And then further, like there's a ladder just leading up to this low roof that is just 150 yards away from where he's going to be. And then, oh, look at that. Nobody's going to be guarding it.
There was no ladder.
Literally unbelievable.
There was no ladder. He had purchased a ladder, but they never found the ladder. The information that came out officially was that he climbed up from one of the lowest portions of the roofs, because these were like connected buildings, using something like an air conditioner or something like that. It was some kind of a physical structure that he was able to climb up on and use that to get access to the roof. Now, I'm casually looking at this, yet I keep seeing a pattern of me being more informed than people who are doing this for a living, and it's really kind of bizarre. This guy's getting paid to do this. She's getting paid to do this. She didn't correct him and say, no, there wasn't a ladder. So she doesn't know either. She's informing us, and she doesn't even know the full story.
Why no one was stationed on this roof, which seemed like an, very basic, obvious, you don't want someone to have a clear line of sight.
Although no one was physically on the roof was covered, and it was within their security perimeter. In fact, the counter snipers saw the guy on the roof because the roof was covered, and it was within their perimeter.
At the former president's head, from within very easy striking distance, why wasn't there anyone on the roof? She says that it was a little sloped, so it may have been a secure.
Being on the roof is not a requirement to cover a roof, right? You can cover a roof without being on the roof, right? Depending on the time, how long, and the type of event, you can cover the roof from another roof that's higher. You can use drones. You can use cameras on the roof. There is AI technology that can detect guns and things like that. Facial recognition. There's a lot of ways to cover a roof. It's just kind of like the border. A wall is not the only way to stop people from coming into the country. That's only one method.
Security concern. Let's take a listen to that.
When you saw the events unfold on Saturday?
Shock, and then concern, obviously, for the former president.
Investigators now trying to determine whether roof access had been properly locked down. The shooter climbing up seemingly unimpeded, about 400 feet from the stage, with a direct line of sight on the former president.
Should that roof have been secure, period?
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
This is, of course, being roundly mocked, as it should be, because even if, first of all, the safety concern, okay, the safety concern you're supposed to be concerned with is protecting the former president of the United States and the Republican presidential nominee. And second of all, Ryan, you look at that roof and it's also barely sloped. So it's just an utterly mockable, preposterous dodge here from the Secret Service director.
So at this time, now I think it's appropriate to start directly criticizing the Secret Service. Everyone jumped to conclusions and had a lot of baseless remarks regarding the Secret Service and their failures. Right? In contrast, my focus was with local law enforcement, and I was unable to come to a conclusion as to whether it's still the Secret Service's fault or it's just local law enforcement. In order to answer that question, I need more information, right? But there's people who also don't have all the information they need, but they're still coming to conclusions anyway, right? What I need to know is, did the Secret Service identify these potential threats? And if they did they instruct the local law enforcement on how to mitigate these threats? Because if they identified it and gave the instructions, but the local law enforcement didn't follow the instructions, then it's the local law enforcement's fault. However, if Secret Service just kind of handed this zone off to them and said, have fun, right? We're going to cover the interior perimeter. We want you guys to cover beyond that. Do your thing. We're going to trust that you guys know what you're doing. If that's what they did, then the Secret Service is at fault. But we don't know the answer to that question, right? So you need to reserve your judgment. However, the time for reserving your judgment has passed because we now have enough information to start making an assessment that the Secret Service absolutely seems to have some major faults. This does not change the fact that it really looks like law enforcement are a big part of the problem. But now we have law enforcement and Secret Service failing, and also our media failing us. Listen very closely, because I think this is a perfect example of how bad our media is. Corporate, independent, even my good friends at Breaking Points, I still generally love their content, with some exceptions, of course. But this is horrible. So notice that they were quick to call out this director for this idea that the roof was too sloped, right? Quick to have that knee-jerk reaction, but yet look at the glaringly obvious that they missed. The glaringly obvious and very strong rebuttal to what the director said, right? How can she say that she didn't want to put people on that roof because of the slope when, by my estimate, I think it was a 1/12 slope roof, so it's very, very gentle slope. But here's the glaringly obvious thing that Breaking Points missed and many others who were criticizing them missed. They had two separate sniper teams on sloped roofs, and in fact, those roofs were more aggressively sloped. This building here had a sniper and spotter team, and also this roof over here had another sniper and spotter team. So how on earth can a woman say the reason that there was no one on this roof is because it was sloped? Meanwhile, the whole world has seen that they had snipers on a sloped roof that was even more aggressively sloped, and yet no one points this out? Breaking Points didn't think to comment this? I mean, this is like basics. Someone says, I don't want people to be on a roof because it's sloped. That same person has been known to do the exact same thing they said they wouldn't want to do. So look at this. This is independent media Breaking Points not bringing this up. And then also corporate news. The person interviewing the director didn't respond and say, but didn't you guys have people on a sloped roof? And this is not some like genius thing that I came up with or I'm so smart. This is obvious, right? This is totally obvious. How is it that our media is so incompetent and it's not about the boogeyman mainstream media? Here they are, independent media, who we want to create a new mainstream, that they're doing the same thing mainstream media is doing, right? And one of the things, I think one of the problems with independent media is that they are repeating. They're not really coming up with independent thought and doing their own analysis, right? I think that is the pattern. Every time I listen to these independent media people talking about this story, I think all I'm hearing is stuff that they read in their Twitter feeds, right? So she and, Ryan Grimm read in their Twitter feeds somebody else's thought of, this is ridiculous about the sloped roof and, it's not even that sloped. They read it and then they just repeat it back to you, the viewer. They never sat down and actually thought about what's being said and had their own original thought, right? Because perhaps if they did, they would go beyond just what they read and they would say, but wait a minute, didn't they have snipers on a sloped roof just on the other side? Wow. Very clear. The incompetence that I'm pointing to that makes me concerned now, for the first time I have a notable concern about Secret Service failures. The reason why is because this is the director of the Secret Service, and her reasoning skills seem to be questionable, to say the least. If this is the way that a person who directs the Secret Service thinks, I'm very concerned about her competency. How could she think that's a good idea to explain we didn't put anyone on the roof because of the slope roof when she knows that the world knows that she had officers on sloped roofs at the same event? She's not even sharp enough to recognize that doesn't make any sense. Or maybe she is sharp enough to realize that our media is so clueless that they won't notice what she's saying is stupid. I mean, they may have a knee-jerk instinctual response, but they're not going to recognize, like, oh, wait a minute, didn't you? Come on. The thing that shows the breakdown in the media in this particular case, Breaking Points, she said the decision was made to secure the building not from the roof but from inside. Now, Breaking Points does point out that that kind of doesn't make sense. How do you secure a building from the inside? But again, very surface level analysis, not really thinking too much, not doing much analysis of the situation, and therefore not really going that far. Let's go a little bit deeper than that. What the Secret Service director said does not make any sense, right? And there's a huge problem with it, and it's not just what Breaking Points pointed out in terms of how do you secure a roof from within a building. Here's the big problem with it. The two people in the building were not Secret Service agents. They were local snipers. These were local law enforcement snipers, and they were not securing the roof of the building. They were looking through the windows at the location where Trump was. They were using the building to get a downward looking vantage point to see the whole crowd and everyone and be prepared to take out a threat at the location where Trump was. They were not concerned with the building. But that's not what the reporting is that we've been given. So Breaking Points isn't aware of who was in that building and what they were doing. Is this why they didn't bring this up? Again, it's good they bring up the logic issue of securing a roof from within the building, but why don't they go further and mention who was in there and what they were doing, which completely contradicts what the director is saying. So now we get into the point of, is the director lying or trying to deceive us? And also, it's even worse than that. If she's trying to lie or deceive us, she's doing a very bad job that demonstrates a lack of intelligence. What kind of director of Secret Service would make a claim that you are securing the building from within the building, which makes no sense, when in reality, the people in the building were not securing the roof? And you know that this is known and can be known, right? So it's a really, really bad lie. Amateur hour level lie. A demonstration of incompetence. If this is the director of the Secret Service, wow.
I'm saying, we see this guy bear crawling up the roof with a gun. You see people on the ground at the rally. There's videos of we see him, he's got a gun. And Trump is still allowed to go out and give his rally speech and come within millimeters of this bullet, completely taking him out.
That is not what happened. That is false. Take a look. So a lot of people have been acting like a bunch of people saw this guy with a gun on the roof and no one really did anything. 30 minutes went by or a long period of time went by and then the president gets shot at. This is absolutely false. I actually consulted with my good buddy who is a former Marine and sniper, but even he made the same mistake as well. And I think the reason why a lot of people are getting it wrong is because of emotions. People in the media are too excited trying to get their stories out to get the views. And then people watching it, you know, my friend included, you know, they have their biases and, you know, emotions in terms of, you know, they think this is happening or that's happening or pointing fingers at the Secret Service or local law enforcement or whatever ideas they have. And it's clouding their judgment. It's clouding their ability to process information. This is actually what happened. We'll take a look at the video.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic gave me the Pacific.
You notice how quiet it is? No one's running. No one's screaming, right? This is after they've seen someone on the roof. The reason why everyone's so calm is because at this moment, it's just a weirdo on the roof. That's all it is. Guy could be going up there trying to take photos, or who knows what he's doing up there, right? No one really knows. They know enough to know that it's kind of concerning, and hey, you guys should see what this guy's up to. But it's not yet reached the level of like, oh my God, it's a shooter, which is why everyone's just hanging out. Everyone's walking around. It's quiet. The police officers are not even moving that quickly.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look.
Someone's on top of the roof. If if it was known that this guy had a gun, you think this is what he would say? Is this how people communicate? The president is speaking 400 feet away, and you see a guy on the roof with a gun. Would you say, "Oh yeah, there's some guys on the roof"? Like, really? The biggest detail here is the fact that he has a gun. So anyone seeing him have a gun would absolutely use the word gun. The reason why he's not saying that is the same reason why everyone's just kind of chill at this moment, because all they know is there's a guy on the roof. They don't know what he's up to. It's possible at this time, because that roof was being covered by the sniper team, the Secret Service sniper team. They are possibly also looking at him, but they don't know who this guy is. Is he law enforcement or is he a bad guy? They need to figure this out and figure it out quickly in order so they can take action in accordance with the rules of engagement. Rules of engagement are not, you see some weirdo on a roof, you start firing shots. They need to quickly identify if the person's a threat, and once they do, take action. But another detail that I would like to know, but we may never know, is there should be, and probably is, a preemptive step where action is taken prior to identifying whether it's a threat or not. Based on the likelihood that it's a threat, there's a certain condition where before you confirm it's a threat, you, for example, have the president taken off the stage, have him duck down behind the whatever. We see someone on the roof, we need to confirm what's going on, right? And then you confirm it's a law enforcement guy. Okay, fine, everything's fine. False alarm, right? If it's actually a threat, the guy doesn't get to shoot the president because you already pulled him out, right? That's why we need to know the communication logs, who said what, when. And it's tricky knowing their protocol because they don't want to let us know all their the details of their protocols. But ideally, we'd want to know there's got to be a preemptive step where you take preemptive action before. It cannot be that they don't do anything until they know for sure it's a threat. There's no way. I mean, it's possible, but I would doubt it. But again, I don't know if we're going to know that level of detail of their protocols. But just something to think about.
There he is right there.
Where?
Right there, you see him? He's laying down, you see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
Does anyone sound at all really concerned? Yeah, he's laying down, right? Yet everyone's talking about, oh, they said that there's guys on the roof and no one did anything. That's not what they said. The video you hear when they say he's got a gun, this is moments before he fires, right? This notion, this idea people are promoting that they saw this guy with a gun on the roof and no one did anything, that is simply not what occurred.
And son, I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a Senate.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do,
Someone's asking what's happening.
we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's
There he
not
is.
easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have.
So now, I think for the first time in the video, you hear somebody saying, hey, officer, and they're saying he's on the roof. Now, looking at this video, it's pretty clear that whoever officer that they're talking to is not going to be able to see this guy, right? He would have to run up to them to have the same vantage point to see where the guy is. Even they can't really see him that well because they see him because he moved, right? But definitely somebody closer to the building on the other side is not going to see anything at all. So whoever they're talking to is going to be like, oh, what? Right? It's a reality. I don't care how good your training is, whatever it is, you just cannot, unless you got x-ray vision, they're not going to be able to see this guy on the roof.
We have people that should not be here.
Right on the roof.
It's much tougher than it happens.
You went right on the roof, big guy.
Up here.
Notice the difference in a reaction of someone who actually saw him with the gun. So this is somebody who saw him on the roof and saw the gun. Not just a guy on the roof, but a guy with a gun. Listen to what they say.
Climbing the roof, then noticed he had a gun. They tried alerting police, then took cover.
I kind of felt I could see the guy with.
They tried alerting police and then took cover. No one in the previous video took cover. They didn't run. They weren't screaming. They didn't seem to be very agitated because they didn't see the gun. At least we have no evidence to support that. Absolutely no evidence from that video indicates that anyone saw the gun. Everyone in the video is a bunch of people walking around. Everyone was just hanging out, right? It's just a guy on the roof. That's a very different thing from a guy on the roof with a gun. Guy on the roof is concerning, for sure, but the same level as someone with a gun. Now, hindsight is 2020, so everyone knowing that he was the shooter and he would try to shoot Donald Trump supposedly will think from the perspective of like, obviously he was gonna, you know what I mean? But you wouldn't know that if you were at that event. You wouldn't know what's gonna happen next. I would say, you know, when you're watching people covering this story, especially independent media, be very, very, very careful. I think mainstream media has been doing a pretty good job. There's definitely problems there because, for example, like I said in an interview, that guy didn't call out the Secret Service director on that issue with the slope roof. But for the most part, they have, in my view, been doing a better job than independent media. Independent media, a lot of the videos, especially the first videos, seemed rushed. People were on the weekend and they were out hanging out, and then they go run to the bathroom and quickly read off some stuff they saw on Twitter and this and that, blah, 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 blah. And even now, you know, like Breaking Points is definitely getting more professional on their reporting on this. It's still pretty bad. They're still not really taking it very seriously, not doing a lot of analysis, not, you know, fully informing themselves in terms of everything that's happened so far. You know, it's just amateur hour across the board. So be very, very careful when you're listening to independent media covering this story. There are people also who are trying to stoke, you know, conspiracy theories and stuff because that'll get you good views. Some people are doing it overtly. Some people are doing it kind of like just asking questions, being very, very subtle. So I see a lot of manipulation, and also, again, just sloppy. Like people not just reading stuff on Twitter, repeating it to their audience. They don't really know all the facts, and then they come to conclusions based on half information. It's just it's embarrassing. This is a perfect example of why I say this whole thing about making the boogeyman of, you know, mainstream media. It's not about mainstream media, right? It's about the for-profit, you know, media business, right? Anyone doing media for profit is a potential problem as far as the incentive to sensationalize and say and do things that will get more views as opposed to focusing on informing your audience. This is Debate Me channel. Debate Me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.